The third video, the solution to the sample question number 2, the kind of key thing with this question is we've done questions with classes you've never seen before. There's a lot of that in the test. This question really has that a lot because actually there's 3 different classes you've never seen before. There's a class called player, there's a class called team, and there's a class called league. And actually it's super important you keep track of which class you're in. That's going to be kind of an important main idea as I go through this. So this first part A we're writing is a method of the team class. And it's called get players who didn't play enough. We're going through kind of counting something, so let's just make a variable called total, which equals 0. Then we're going to loop through something. We know we're going to be looping through something. But the question is, what are we looping through? Okay, let's take a closer look at the team class. In the team class, we've got an array list of players called roster. That's a list of all the players, so that's what we're looping through. What type is roster? It's an array list of player. So down here I'm going to say I is less than roster dot, and it's an array list, so you'd say dot size, I plus plus. And now we're going to need an if statement. If, okay, now we start with our private instance variable roster. What type is roster? It's an array list of players. So roster.getI gets me 1 player. So now if I put a dot here, I have all the player methods. Player is up here, and the method I'm concerned about is the method called get minutes played. And that has to be, if they didn't play enough, that is less than this parameter, which is the required minutes. So required minutes. If that's the case, I found a player who didn't play enough, so I will say total plus plus. At the end of this method, I just return the total. And that looks pretty good for part A. Okay? Key things here, roster.getI.getMinutesPlayed. Kind of keep track of that. That's a very common pattern you're going to see. Let's go to part B. Part B now, different class. We're in the league class now. We want to get the name of the names of the rule-breaking teams. So let's go here. Public array list of string get names of rule breaking teams. Okay, we're returning an array list, so let's create one. Array list string names equals new array list string open close. Probably looping through something, looping through all the teams. For int I equals 0, I is less than, let's take a closer look up here. So we're in the league class now. Okay, the league class is right here. League has a private instance variable, league min minutes, that's kind of the rule. And then we have this array of teams. So we're going to say teams dot, teams is an array, not an array list, so we say dot length, I plus plus. And then we want to say if that team broke the rule. So if, okay, we start with our private instance variable teams. Teams is an array, so we will say, so teams is an array. So if I want to access one element of an array, I say bracket I. Teams is an array of teams, so if I say teams bracket I, that is one team. So if I put a dot here, I get all of the team methods. What looks like what I care about here is here are the team methods up here. I want to use the one I just wrote. That's going to be get num players who didn't play enough. Can I copy that? I guess I can't. Get num players who didn't play enough. Now let's think, does that method take any parameters? I can't just put open close, that's wrong, because it requires a parameter, which is the required minutes. Just where do I get that? Do I go, oh, I'm in the league class, and there's a private instance variable called league min minutes. So league min minutes. Make that. Now this is going to return a number. What do I want to see about that number? Well, everybody has to play that much in the league. That's the rule. So if this number is greater than 0, then that team broke the rule, right? They had at least one player who didn't play enough minutes. So what do? I found a team that broke a rule. I want to add it to an array list of names. So names is an array list, dot add, and now I want to add the name of that team. That's what it says here. So if I say teams, that's an array, teams bracket I is one team. And if I don't want to do this, if I just did that, I'd be adding a team to an array list of strings. That's wrong. So I want to say teams bracket I dot, and now I can use any of the team methods. Let's go back up here. Team has a method called getTeamName. That's the one I want, getTeamName. And that will add just the name of the team, and then after this I return the name of all the teams, which is called names. Names is an array list. This method returns an array list. I'm looking good. Okay, we're done with part B. Move on to part C. Part C of the question says we're writing a method called getNameOfChampionTeam. So public string getNameOfChampionTeam. This is, again, kind of our find the biggest, who's the belt holder champion kind of strategy, with one little wrinkle, which is if there's a tie before, in most of the questions I've given you before, I've just said, don't worry about it, there won't be a tie. Now I'm actually saying you need to worry about there being a tie, because you return the name of the team or the string tie if there is a tie. Okay? Several different ways you could do that, but I'll present one way. We're going to keep track of a couple bits of information. First, we're going to keep track of the most wins. So int most wins is equal to, okay, now we're looping through the teams. We're not looping through the teams, we're just saying the number of wins of the first team. So team bracket 0, that's the first team, dot, and now we can use any of the team methods, which is the one we care about. Here's the league class, here's the team class. It's called getNumWins. GetNumWins. That's the number of wins of the first team. Then I will say string, let's just say name is equal to the name of the first team, which is team bracket 0 dot get name, or sorry, get team name, right? Then I'm going to need to have some information to kind of keep track of this whole tie business. So I'm going to say Boolean tie, and so far I haven't seen a tie, so we're going to just say false. And basically we're going to kind of do, if we find one that ties it, we'll set that to true, otherwise we'll set it to false. Now we're going to start looping through the teams, similar to I did in part B. For int I equals, could say 0, let's say 1, because we've already checked the first one. I is less than, teams is an array, so it's teams.length, right? Here's one team, but if you scroll down here, here's the variable teams. Team is an array of teams, so .length, I++. Now, we've kind of seen often having one if here. I'm going to actually make two ifs. The first if is going to be there's a tie. It's exactly the same number. And then the next one is you beat it. So let's first say if you beat it. If teams bracket I, that's the ith team, dot get num wins, if that is greater than most wins, then we have a new outright champion. So first of all, we'll say most wins equals that exact quantity. That's the new number of wins. The name is equal to teams bracket I dot get team name. And then importantly, we actually don't have a tie now. We have a new grand champion, so tie is equal to false. Well, what else if, there's another possibility, and the else is actually going to be important here. What if there's not a new champion, but there's a tie for the champion? So I'm going to copy this and say, what if it doesn't greater than, what if it equals it exactly? Well, in that case, we have a tie. So I will say tie is equal to true. Okay? If you didn't have this else here, that actually would be kind of a mistake, because then you would find a new grand champion, and then you'd also check this, and you would kind of tie with itself. So this else is important here. Well, now after the for loop, let's see, we can say if tie equals true, or just with Boolean then if tie, then what it tells us to do is return the actual word tie. Else, we can return the name of the winner, which in this case is name. I'll make this so you can see the whole thing here. This part C is a little bit longer. I can't even fit the whole thing on one screen at once, but there we go. So you keep track of 3 bits of information: the most wins, the name, and whether or not there's a tie. Then we loop through. If you find a new champion, we do this with the additional wrinkle of there's not a tie. If we find an exact number, we set tie to be true. And then after the whole for loop, we say if it's a tie, return the string tie, otherwise return the name itself. There are other solutions to this, but some of them might kind of require going through first with a for loop and counting up the number of wins, then going through and checking. Those solutions would work, but you'll see in the handout, I asked you just with one loop, and this is like the only way I can think to do it that involves one loop. And there's your third solution, and